So hello everyone, today I want to discuss a little bit about field of view within Apex Legends, the things that it does, the things that it changes in gameplay, and other things I've observed. Obviously the first thing that you notice when you change your FOV is like the difference in what you can see, or like rather how much you can see. So if you increase your FOV, you'll be able to see a lot more around you, and if you decrease your FOV, you'll be able to see a lot less around you, but everything else will be zoomed in. So I'll quickly just show a difference between 90 FOV and 110 FOV. So obviously, other than like the increase or decrease in like your field of vision or how much you can see, there are a lot of other differences. Like for example, the size of the player model. When you increase your FOV, sure, you can see a lot more, but it also zooms everything out, and that makes the player model a lot smaller. And it also changes your perception of distance. Like everything else just looks a lot further away. Because of the combination of those two things, which is like the smaller player model and the increase in distance, everything just looks a lot slower. Player movement, like enemy player movement, will look a lot slower in comparison to something like 90 FOV, which I will be switching over to now. So in 90 FOV, it's basically the inverse. Everything looks a lot closer, the player models are bigger, and they also move a lot faster. So like, how does this actually affect your gameplay other than being able to see a lot more or a lot less? Because the target is moving a lot faster, the direction changes of the player model are also a lot more sharper. I don't think Apex Legends is like the perfect game to demonstrate this, because there's like deceleration before direction changes. It's not like Overwatch where the direction change is immediate, but regardless, it still makes reading the target a lot, like just a little bit harder compared to a higher FOV. And in converse, a higher FOV means that the aiming is a lot more precision and smoothness focus, and that's probably the reason why a lot of people prefer to play on a higher field of view, because reading is pretty much like the most important skill set in any video game, regardless of if it's a first-person shooter or not, and being able to make reading easier just makes the game feel a lot easier, I guess. Alright, so the next thing that I want to talk about is a change that's a lot more invisible than like obvious visual changes that you will notice, and that's your change in sensitivity. The first thing that you'll notice is your sensitivity in like a lower FOV will feel a lot faster, even if the hipfire sense is exactly the same. That's just because everything is a lot closer, and when you move your mouse, you move through like 90 degrees in this case of your field of vision, whereas in this case you're moving 110 degrees. So it's basically that in a lower FOV, in 90 FOV, your mouse movements are more exaggerated. But when it comes to optics, like scopes that have different zoom levels, your sensitivity between FOVs will actually change. I'm not exactly sure between like the difference between 90 and 110, but it is a fact that it does change. I will put something up in the screen that shows the difference in sensitivity for different scope levels. This happens because the sensitivity calculation for scopes are also based on field of view, and when you change your FOV, the amount of zoom that you have for your scopes also changes. Right, so as you can see, like the 4x zoom is a lot more zoomed out in 110 compared to 90, and this will affect your sensitivity. It will change. So keep that in mind when you change your FOV. I will link a very useful calculator in the description. This sensitivity calculator is made for Apex, and it also accounts for the changes in your FOV. So if you do plan to change your FOV drastically, then you can go ahead and use that calculator. Right, so the next thing that I want to talk about is aspect ratio and how that changes your field of view. I will pull up a bunch of comparisons between like the different FOVs 16:9, 16:10, and 4:3 and how it changes on the screen now. And the first thing that we'll be looking at is 16:10. And in 16:10, this is 16:10 with 110 FOV. You'll see that like everything is more stretched, and it looks a little zoomed in because of that. And that is because your FOV actually gets reduced. Specifically, your horizontal FOV gets reduced. And I will also pull up 106 FOV in 16:9, and if you compare 106 FOV in 16:9 with 110 FOV in 16:10, you can see the horizontal aspect ratio is the same, but 16:10 benefits from a wider enemy model or wider player model. But that also means that the movement speed of the player is also increased. Now, I think 16:10 is like the perfect balance for people that don't like want to play 16:9, but obviously don't want to go all the way to the extreme, which is 4:3. And if you are someone that's like struggling to hit targets or maybe struggling to see a little bit, maybe change to 16:10 instead of reducing your FOV, because basically you're getting the same FOV as 106 16:9 but with wider player models. And if you also notice, the vertical FOV in this 110 16:10 is actually higher. So the next thing we'll also be looking at now is 4:3, and I don't really recommend 4:3, and you'll find out why. So this is 110 FOV on 4:3. It looks very stretched. Yeah, it's a little too stretched for me, but the closest comparison to this in 16:9 is actually 94 FOV, and I mean that's a considerable reduction. Like when you switched over to 16:10, it was only a difference of 4 FOV, but now it's an entire like double digits difference in the field of view. And not to mention, you need to put special launch options to make 4x3 stretch to work within Apex Legends. And it's just like, and if you change your resolution to anything else and you switch back to 4:3, it doesn't reapply those changes to remove the black boxes. So there's like a lot of hassle when it comes to setting up 4:3. And I think it just makes the enemy movement way too fast. And it just makes reading very difficult, so I just don't recommend 4:3. I think 16:10 is the perfect balance if you want to switch your aspect ratio to anything else. Honestly, in my opinion, as long as your FOV is anything like 90 or above, you're good. Everyone has like their own strengths and weaknesses. Some people might be really good at reading, and they might want to benefit from the bigger player models, then they can play on a lower FOV. Some people might struggle with reading, so maybe they want to lower their sense and play lower their sense and play on a higher FOV. If you look at like prosettings.com or whatever, the average field of view is like 106 or 108, something like that. And that's because pro players either choose like one of these two FOVs, and that is 104 or 110. So if you don't know what FOV to play, just flip a coin, like assign like one of the FOVs to like one of the sides, flip a coin, and just pick and choose whatever you get. And if you want slightly more bigger player models, but you don't want to change away from 110 FOV, just simply play on 16:10. Easy as that. So I hope this video was helpful. There's probably a lot of information in this video that you already knew, and if that's the case, well, that's too bad. But if I shared anything useful, please sure to like. Also, if you have the time, please follow my Twitch, which is MKRM1123. I'll put it up on the screen now. I might start streaming anytime soon, so you can catch me there as well. Right? Thank you for watching.